Okay, thanks very much, Lee, and welcome everyone. It's great to have so many people here for this session. First time that we members of the Open Education Policy Hub, I think time for any of us to present at Open Ed. So that's exciting. Our co-presenter Denise, I'm sure, is an old hand at this conference, but not so much us. So it's great to be here, and today we're going to be talking about collaborating toward an open future in education, and why policy is a part of that. So if we could just get onto the next slide, please, Jan. Jan is driving our slides. This is just a quick glimpse of the Open Education Policy Hub team. Jan modestly put himself at the end of this slide, but he is the leader of this project, and of the OER world map, which is the kind of parent project that this is part of. But we also have Javiera and myself here today, and we also work with Fabio and Santiago, who are not able to join us today, but I'm sure send their best. And we also have a special guest star with us today, an official friend of the Open Education Policy Hub, Denise Cote, and she will explain a bit later on about the policy work that she's been doing with CCCOER and how that's involved collaborating with us. So, but we'll come on to Denise's bit a little bit later on. First, I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of what are we doing this for. So as no doubt many of you will be aware, in 2019, UNESCO produced a recommendation on open educational resources, and this is really quite a big thing. UNESCO doesn't have many recommendations. They have quite a few declarations and things like this quite frequently. But a recommendation is really like asking the member states to take an issue quite seriously and start taking some action on it. And one of the aspects of their recommendation for open education was that states should develop institutional and national policy environments that are supportive of effective OER practices. As many of you probably know, OE policy is quite advanced in some countries and also in many US states. And also in a subset of higher education institutions around the world. But it also is, in some places, struggling to get onto the agenda. And so where people are looking to create policy, it goes to show that there's a need to be able to connect policymakers, people who are advocating for open education policies, experts in how this is done, educators who want to be able to do things, so that they can find and share policy examples and knowledge and good practices. And this is where the Open Education Policy Hub should come in. But so in wanting to kind of be that hub to connect all these people with other people and with the knowledge that they're looking for, it led us to ask some questions about, you know, what do we really think open education policy is? Is this more than just having policy for OER? And how can you find out if people have open education policy? Because of course, in some cases, policy isn't necessarily written. It may well be that policy is is simply the way that things are done, and that is a kind of an unwritten policy. But we decided to we should come up with a kind of an overview definition of what we're looking at when we're talking about open education policy in the context of this project. So this is what we are saying that we're talking about, and we hope that you think this is a useful way of looking at it. Open education policies are regulations and strategies which foster the development and implementation of open educational practices, including the creation and use of open educational resources by governments, institutions, and other organizations. They allocate resources and orchestrate activities in order to increase access to, as well as quality, efficiency, and innovation in education.
Very nice.
And the next slide, thanks, Jan. In in relation to this, we've also been working on a guide on how to co-create open education policies, and this is due for release reasonably soon. And what we think is important about co-creation is that we would argue this is a policy-making approach that's really in keeping with the ethos of open education. So, we want it to be democratic and participatory and inclusive, and that's really what the kind of co-creation method is all about. And also in this guide, we talk a bit about kind of what kind of policies relate to open education, what kind of components an open education policy might have, and really how to go about the process of co-creating. So not watch this space, but watch the Policy Hub site, because we'll make this available there quite soon. And over to Jan for the next few slides.
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks, Leo, for giving us a short introduction to the topic of policymaking. I'm just want to start by giving you a short overview of the history of the OE Policy Hub, and actually all started 2012 with a project from Creative Commons, and which was named the OER Policy Registry at that time. And they started to collect available policy documents. I think it was on base of a wiki. And in 2018, the OER World Map took over these data collected by Creative Commons, and we put it to the world map. And I'm not sure if you know the world map. If not, have a look at it. It's a quite powerful platform to collect data related to OER. And one of the reasons to put it to the world map was that this would allow to link policy documents with other data, just like platforms or initiatives, organizations, and all that stuff. So the idea was to give a more comprehensive understanding of the available documents. And we started an initial page, which you can see here back in 2018. And just last month, we then managed to launch the OE Policy Hub. So you see the name has changed a bit. It became bigger. The scope of the project became bigger. And it's now not only about policy documents and collecting these data, but also about collecting and connecting initiatives and players. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes with you, just to give you a short overview of the project. First, the mission of the OE Policy Hub is to foster evidence-based collaborative policy making in the field of open education by promoting data, good practices, and high-quality resources, and bringing together expert advocates and organizations from all over the world. So the idea here is to really aggregate the essence of high-quality material available for policymaking, and our hope is that this will be used by policymakers, especially who are being triggered by the UNESCO recommendation, which Leo mentioned in the beginning. So the user groups of the Policy Hub will be policymakers for sure, but also policy advisors and researchers who are interested in policymaking. The functionalities of the platform are currently, we have 4 different parts. One is the OE Policy Registry. So this is the core data set, which I already mentioned in the beginning. I will show it in a moment. We have statistics, which are quite important to get an overview. We have a collection of helpful tools and resources which can be used during the process of policy making. And we also have an expert database, which is based actually on the OER World Map again. So will give you a short view on the page right now. So there's a link here. That's now the homepage of the policy registry. And you can find our mission again here. And you can see here we have the statistics and the resources and the registry. And I will just give you a short glimpse at these elements. First here, search registry. If you click on there, you get to the OER World Map. That's the OER World Map search interface. And you can see here, it's restricted, filtered to policies. So we have currently 266 entries for policy documents. And then you can go on, and this is still in German, I see, so I can switch it to English here. It's a multilingual platform. And so you can see here and go on and filter according to different filters we offer. For instance, you can see for level if it is a national or an institutional policy, or if it's a multinational policy. But you can see also other interesting things like focus, what topics are being addressed by this. I will come back to this in a second. Here I'm back on the hub side. Next thing I wanted to show you are statistics. These are made up of the data which is collected in the OER World Map. So this is real-time statistics. As soon as you add something to the registry, to the World Map, it will show up here. And so we have different types of policies. Like it's quite difficult to say what a policy document is, but there are dedicated policies and other things which are more like strategy documents. Here we try to start looking at policies and repositories. So which country has how many policies and how many repositories. We have the levels I mentioned before. Here you can very nicely see that much work is going on the institutional level, and much is going on the national and state level. And I think it's also, Denise might tell you about later, it's the interference of these levels, which is quite interesting. We have identified different scopes of policies. I will skip this for time reasons. You can see which educational sector is addressed by the policy. And here are the dimensions I mentioned earlier. So we have quite different policies. Some aim at infrastructure, many at content production, but maybe also on things like quality assurance or awareness raising. And all these policies are, these diagrams here are interactive. So if I click on something, you get directly to the policies which are counted there. So you can directly see what is collected here. Two more things I would very briefly mention. First one is the resource page. So this gives you access to quality assured, peer-reviewed material, which is helpful when you are working on your policy. And also, and therefore I have to go back, there is a very initial database for policy experts. So this is quite new, and it's quite easy to get on there. You simply have to register on the OER World Map and add the tag policy advisor to your profile, and then you will show up here. And also you can see these experts on the map if you want to. So this was my very brief live presentation of the system. I'm happy everything worked out. It's always a little bit risky when you do this stuff. Just some more things about the architecture of the world map and the policy hub. So you can see we have the world map database here, and there's an API, and the Open Educational Policy Hub is one of the first satellite sites which is built on top of the OER world map. And the idea behind is that we can focus and design the site according to the needs of a clear user group, because for the world map, the user group is so wide that it's difficult to address certain groups. And we plan to set up other sites as well. So like we are currently working on an OER policy repository monitor. We could do things like OEP explained or web pages for OER and COVID. All this could be built on top of the database. And so it would be addressed and designed for clear user group, but while still feeding the main data set. That's the idea. And also, the idea is that we can build sites for each state initiative, or for maybe also for institutional initiatives. So in our vision, we think that each state should have a website which just shows the data of OERs and OER policymaking related data from the state or from the country. And we have done something very similar in Germany for OER in general. So this is a screenshot from the OER DE map, which is included in the OER info website, which is a general information site on OER in Germany. And actually building up these sites is quite easy. So you can quite easily pick up a link, an iframe link, and include it in their site, and then you have the map there. And we think that this would be a great development if national or state initiative would start building up pages like these, and then collecting their data locally and sharing it globally. And this was my overview of the OE Policy Hub, and I hand over to Denise and Javier.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks, Leo. Well, one of the things that we've been doing lately is to collaborate in projects and support our communities of practice to map and organize the policy landscape in a way or another. So we're doing this also with a group of policymakers in Austria, and they just released a collection of Austrian open education policies, and also been working quite closely with Denise and her team in trying to organize the huge collection of policies and policy-related documents in the US. It's not the same like working with Austria, small country, few universities, few colleges, then to work with the US, which is basically impressive. So we've been actually looking at how the registry database can cope with such a complex, interweaved elements of policy. And there is not just the policy as we would think in Europe, like an institution has a policy. One of the interesting things in the US is all the parliamentary Congress discussions around policy and all the laws and bills. For us was actually a brand new vocabulary need to understand what's the bill, for example, within a state context. So we've been working with Denise in trying to organize and try to put together a kind of single entry point to work also with other regions in the US, creating sort of collections of elements that affect and directly work in policy in community colleges. So it's not just each community college a standalone policy, but all the landscape and the legal environment around it. So I think Denise can explain this way better than I can. But yeah, we've been learning quite a lot, and it's been quite interesting also developing all the training materials to try to fit such a complex landscape and environment.
Well, thanks, Javiera. Leo, Jan, lovely to see you again. Nice to see all of you guys. Wow, there's 108 people here. So I'm Denise Cote, and I am a librarian at the College DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And I've been working with CCCOER with a whole bunch of people, which is led by Una Daly, who's amazing. Last year, before this conference, Una and her group got a bunch of people together to form the regional leaders of Open Education Initiative. So we decided to get together, and the goal of Arlo was to collaborate more widely across states and institutions and try to find solutions to our common problems and try to figure out how we could eliminate duplication of effort. So there's 4 groups. There's sustainability, stewardship, professionalism, and then the group that I'm leading, which is policy and strategy. So just a plug, if you're interested in Arlo's work, we're doing a session tomorrow at 2:00 Central. So anyway, this is a very large group of people, and it includes people from state agencies, from big grant institutions, colleges, universities, large and small, librarians. And for policy and strategy, we were looking for best practices and examples of how to respond to state legislation and, like appropriations, mandates, things like that. And at the same time, fortuitously, the Policy Hub people did a call for policies. They did a very adorably named policy ad-a-thon. And so I jumped at the chance to be able to work with the hub, and my group was totally in favor of that. And in phase 1, what we're doing is we're looking at state level legislation, so bills, laws that address open education, and including policies, guidelines, working documents, all those things that are really hard to find. So, you can find state legislation, and then you can dig around on Google and try to figure out, well, what did they do, after they got this mandate from the state? How did they put together an OER grant program? If they were mandated to do course marking, how did that happen? For instance, if your legislation says that you have to form a statewide OER working group, how does that happen? Where are those minutes? Where, what was the actual process? And we're looking for best practices around that. And for people in states that don't have legislation, like Illinois, having a central location to see how all that stuff fits together was really important. So this scoping of the world map that Jan and Leo and Javiera and Fabio are working on is really helpful, because it scopes that big database down into just policy. So what we decided to do was a pilot project with 3 or 4 states' documents, and just to see how it works and see how the database could work for us. And it works really well so far. And, we've been giving notes, and the hub team has been really responsive to our needs. And so what we did, we had actual practitioners, people that are working with the documentation and working with the legislation in Colorado, in Texas. I'm currently working with North Dakota to put their documents in. And for those people that were instrumental in implementing legislation and implementing policy to create these records in this database and then connecting them together. So for instance, you'll see a piece of legislation, but you'll also see this legislation was the basis for all of these different projects. So the database that the hub team have created is really robust. And what I'm hoping for is going to be like a one-stop shop for somebody like me that is looking for ways to implement policy. So again, I said that we did Colorado, Texas, and then North Dakota. And it's been working out really well. And so the next phase of our project is to make a call to other state leaders to get them to put their documents in, and then making connections. And I think it's really exciting and really super important that we work together globally. People are.
I apologize to interrupt, but
Yeah.
we're actually at time and people are
Oh.
already starting to leave. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
All right. Sorry, Tom.